Tim, welcome to the show.
Kyle Conrad. Happy to be here.
Tim Baldwin.
Hey, I'm gonna blurp. I'm already editing this podcast.
I can't say that.
No, no one can know that.
Okay. What's your current focus in life? What are you most focused on right now?
Probably buying real estate and building a house. Or whatever it means it takes to get there. It's probably work.
So work, but in the goal is to buy and build a house.
Yeah, it's just to own land here and build a house.
Got it.
So I guess essentially whatever revolves around that.
Got it. That's not what I was expecting for you to say. Which is fine.
What were you expecting?
I thought you were going to talk about Mountain Mule.
Yeah, I mean, well, like that's probably almost one in the same. Like, I'm excited about Mountain Mule, and it's in a place right now where it's really kind of accelerating and growing. But that's like the means to that is to have the finances to own some land out here and build a house.
Cool. Why? What do you think a house or a piece of land is going to change for you? Why do you have that desire?
Freedom. Will just give me more freedom to have the things I want to have and do the things I want to do.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, space for myself.
Yeah, you feel like you would maybe settle in a little. You maybe feel more settled if you have your own place.
Yeah, and I just feel like I'd have so much more, I guess, freedom, for lack of a better term, to do what I want to do. Have spots for my vehicles, have a place to work on them, have more space for myself, an office. I really want an extra bedroom so I can essentially have a place for anyone to stay that is in town.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, the things you start to want when you get old and boring.
Right.
I like ultimately want some land for some animals. So I've spent my whole life running from farming and animals.
And now you gotta.
And here it comes. Coming back.
Right. Cool.
And then I think ultimately that will just, like, the long-term goal is that will lead to more freedom of time, more time to do things I want to be doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of kind of like running away from stuff and then them coming back into your life, years ago, you were discouraged about being a carpenter, and so you stopped being a carpenter.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what, a year and a half ago, you started back at it, and so carpentry's coming back in your life.
Yeah.
What was the reasons behind you kind of getting away from it, and now that you're back in it, what do you think of it? Do you have a different perspective on it than you did years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked carpentry, and I like doing the work, and I've always liked working with my hands, but I didn't like the people I was in. The industry, I guess, kind of tainted the whole experience for me. I don't know if I said that right. I didn't like the people I worked with in the industry, and just the environment was toxic and just not a good place to be. And that's what drove me away from it. And I was kind of working in a situation where I was on somebody else's schedule Monday through Friday. And I've, for the most part, been on my own schedule most of my life.
Yeah.
So that, and then I honestly, the reason I gave it a chance just because it seemed like a unique opportunity with someone I was working with, and there's a lot of flexibility and freedom, and I'm doing it as an independent contractor. The money's good, that helps too. And building's fun. Yeah. I want to build my own house.
Yeah, so you went back to it, but you have a lot less attachments or demands than you did previously. Like the situation is different. Like you're an independent contractor, you have more flexibility.
Yeah, and I have my own business too, so it's not my only means of income. When you're desperate, I mean, when you need to make money, and that's the only thing you're doing, your back's against the wall. So I have a lot of flexibility and freedom now.
Yeah. So that probably has a lot to do with why you enjoy it more.
Yeah, and nothing against the people I worked with. It could have just been a bad batch or a bad mindset, but the people I work with now are awesome to be around. Like the culture's good. Like I think everybody has their priorities in line as far as how much we should be working and when we should be taking time for other things that matter.
Yeah. So right now you're running 2 businesses. When do you think you start running 3 businesses?
Have you ever heard of Prestige Media Montana Worldwide?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call that a business just yet.
As far as I know, it's a registered business in Montana.
Yeah, it is.
A third business. I already have some ideas in the pot for a third business, which you know about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, within the next year or so. But it's something I'm just going to do for fun on the side and then let it kind of organically grow.
Yeah. Yeah, more for fun and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming soon. You'll have to wait on that one, folks.
Right. Cool. It's interesting. So I think whether it's a business adventure or just like a personal hobby, or kind of a somewhat kind of in between,
AKA Prestige Media Montana Worldwide.
Right. Yeah, all of those examples could be the podcast, could be Mountain Mule, could be the carpentry business, and whatever is going to come next. It seems as though you keep working towards kind of being like getting over your fear or doubts or maybe self-criticism, whatever it may be. You kind of get over it and you kind of keep pushing forward. What do you think that is?
Can you elaborate on that or give me an example of what you mean by it?
Yeah, it's a pretty poorly worded question.
No, it's fine. You can give me the exact circumstance that you're speaking of, and then I can probably answer.
I don't have an exact circumstance. I think that like, I mean, there's things you've been afraid of in your life, and to me, I feel like you're working through those and getting over them, and you're doing them. And so where do you think that comes from? How does that come about? Like if you were to go back 7 years in your life, like you wouldn't have thought that you were doing these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Right. And go back 4 years, you wouldn't have thought you were doing these kinds of things. Go back 2 years, same thing. Right. Like if you just go back 2 years, we didn't have the podcast. We were afraid to do it for all kinds of reasons.
I'll speak to the carpentry because that one, there was a fear of getting back into doing it. And the fear was it was one of the biggest things I ever came in my life was leaving where I grew up and doing something totally different with my life. And then within a year feeling like, man, I'm right back to doing something I don't want to do again. And it's like a sinkhole. And there was a lot of people depending on me to do what I was doing.
And you were afraid of that.
Yeah. So when I, for the second time, walked away from that, which was it was the very easy rated version of the first time of leaving home. The fear was getting back into that again. Like, how many times do you learn a lesson before you go, okay, here's a pattern. I sign up and sign into things I don't want to do. And then I'm unhappy. And who's to blame?
I can't wait until you get a couple animals and you have the exact same fear.
That's entirely possible. But I'll say this. When I first moved here to Bozeman, I worked at a farm 2 days a week. and I was driving on the side. I was doing some Uber driving. I started Mountain Mule, and it was, I was doing the best I could to get business from it. And I loved it that I was working at the farm because it was 2 days. It wasn't
your main source of income.
And it wasn't my problem.
Yeah.
And I called it a hack because I was like, cool, I get to work with cows and farm, and I love farming, and I've done it my whole life, and I'm very competent at it. So it's when you're essentially.
Were you working the night shift?
Sometimes, yeah, because they did a 2 a.m., 2 p.m. shift. It gave me so much comfort and stability because my whole life felt like complete chaos because I was in a new state.
Except for the milking cows.
That gave me the comfort and stability because I knew what I was doing. I knew I was competent, but it was because it wasn't 7 days a week, because I had the choice. So, I mean, that's the same thing with the carpentry now. I do it as many days as I can and as many days as I'm available. And if I can only work a half day, and if I need to go away for 5 days, I do. And that's my choice. It's not, I'm there for the guys when they need me, and we're a team. So it's not like I just show up when I feel like it, but there's a lot more freedom. Yeah.
You're planning ahead and you're telling them, hey, I'm going to take these days off.
Yeah.
Hey, next, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to leave at noon or whatever.
Yeah. And we did like the 9-day hunting trip with Casey. I knew about it 3 months in advance, but I didn't, or 6 months really, but wasn't I hope I can get this time off. It's like, hey, here's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm letting you know 4 months in advance.
Which is way different than really both occupations that you've had in the past, which is farming. So you don't get any days off. Or like if you were working in construction, you could have asked for some of those days off. Some of them would have been granted to you, and other ones been like, no, you can't have the time off.
Yeah, you just started like no days off. You're on a probation period.
Whatever. Whatever it is, you're not in control of your own time because your boss tells you when you can take the days off and when you can't, to an extent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so both of those situations now, or both those old situations, like that doesn't exist anymore.
But mark my words, I could have some animals and say, what the hell am I doing again?
Well, and it would be natural to have some of that feeling because you're like, this is a lot of responsibility and you know it.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you're going to have to prepare for that responsibility. However, if you set it up kind of the way that you're set these other things up where you're like, it doesn't all have to depend exactly on you, then you kind of get to enjoy it, have it, but not have it to a point where it, takes over your life. Let's just say you had 4 cows.
Mm-hmm.
What would that look like? Is that even worth it?
Yeah, I mean, it very much could be, especially if I want to eat a cow a year, and maybe you want a cow a year.
Okay.
And maybe whoever, friends and family.
But other than that, we just milk cows.
Oh, no, I'm not. I don't think I'll have any milk cows.
Okay. Yeah. Because they require being milked twice a day.
Yeah, I mean, and you could potentially get away with milking them once a day. There's a lot of different circumstances, but I just know there's no way I would have a milk cow.
Okay.
I say that now, and I'll probably have a milk cow in 5 months. But it's not worth it. Like, if you wanted to have like a share on a cow, and like 7 people wanted to have it, and everyone milked it 1 day a week, maybe. But you don't want to milk it every day, and there's no way you'd use that much milk unless you were just making.
So even if you had 1.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you feed it. If you're not feeding it, like, it's going to produce kind of what it's fed, but when it first has a calf, it's going to have quite a bit of milk. And then as time goes by, that, like, their lactation period, they give less and less milk. And then, like, eventually you got to breed them again, and they got to have a new lactation, or that, like, the cow's going to go dry. It's like not just going to produce milk indefinitely. But I don't know. I couldn't see a circumstance where I'd want to have a milk cow, but if anyone out there has any opportunities they want to present to me, I'm open to them.
All right.
But some beef cows to eat.
Yeah.
That I would do.
Got it. What are you most afraid of?
Ooh, I've thought about this before. Complacency. Just living a life to get by, to have enough money to buy a house and feel safe and feel comfort, which is great, and comfort's important and it's a good thing to have, but just not to just for the sake of being comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I come from a very, I don't know, like luxurious position to say that, because there's a lot of people that are in shitty, terrible situations where they would do anything for some comfort.
Mm-hmm.
But just focusing on the wrong things, only kind of like everything's a means to an ends of having enough money and then being comfortable, and I don't know, not, no offense to anyone or everyone, but just doing the same boring thing that like humans do.
Mm-hmm.
No one in specific, but humans as a culture, which is make enough money, buy a piece of land, and then kind of.
So, like, in a sense, like, you're afraid of complacency and like sedation, like sedation of your mind and sedation of your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to like get domesticated.
Precisely. I like doing things that scare me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not
just a little bit.
Yeah, not like not stupid, because I do most of the things I do have intention and reason, but I don't want to just be, if the question comes up and like, should I do that? It's kind of risky. And then I'll say risky, but not stupid. Like, I usually know the answer already.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've talked about this, the billboard.
Mm-hmm.
Put up a big billboard for my company, and it was a big investment. And I was like, I had some reservations. Do I want to put my company on a giant billboard on the way to Big Sky? And like,
Well, it wasn't the money that bothered you, was it?
No, it wasn't. But it's like, if you're going to do it, you're going to sign a contract for a good amount of money. And if you're just kind of haphazardly like, well, yeah, I guess I'll do that. Do you want to dump several $1,000s?
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like some reservation and some nerve about it, of my company being on a very big billboard.
You felt vulnerable.
Yeah, precisely. That's like, the website is to my company is on a billboard.
Yeah.
And my company is a representation of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, everyone in Montana, if you want to type in this,
not only everybody in Montana, way more than that.
Anyone from all over the world that comes here to ski for the next 6 months.
Right.
And then we had the whole conversation I had with you. I'm glad I'm finally going to have the balls to put up this billboard, which led to the thought, my mule,
your logo,
my mule for Mount Mule doesn't have balls on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the idea, I got to put balls. That mule has to have balls on it, which is hilarious. Yeah. And then the same thing. I kind of had the thought, like, that's so stupid. And I'm not talking big, gaudy, horrendous balls, but just balls as they should symmetrically look. Yeah. And then the thought crossed my mind, and my mindset was, you can't not do this. Well, you can not do this and be like every other company who puts up a billboard. It's very generic. It's very, and then I couldn't, like, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to do this. And it was, I don't know, it was kind of exhausting. There was a dozen and a half different mock-ups of the testicles on this mule.
Yeah.
And it cost several $100s. It cost, like, said and done, it was expensive to have the logo changed, to have the billboard designed. And
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my biggest fear would be not doing any of that, saying, oh, you know what? I got to save that money.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody might see that and be offended by it. And it's not offensive. It's the same as nature. You would see any But anyway, so yeah, just complacency, mundane, being bored, but also
It's weird because if you just take that example, right?
The stupidest example in the.
Well, the balls are just part of the example of the billboard.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, at the end of the day, I'm using the billboard example. Like you're not scared of putting up a billboard. You're scared of the vulnerability and the attention that it would bring to you and your company, and that you are going to have to like show up and put up or shut up, because all of a sudden you're going to have way more, potentially you're going to have way more attention than you've ever had. And so that's going to push you further and push your business further. And so that's what you're really scared of.
Yeah.
And so like, it's interesting because all those things in the moment months ago, you couldn't have, or I don't think you could have, or really anybody could have articulated that on the spot. Right. But you can articulate it now because you've thought it through and you're like, no, why does that bother me? Like, why does it bother me to put a billboard up? And it could be anything. Right. But I guess what I'm getting at is like in the moment, it's really hard to articulate like why something scares you or bothers you or attracts you. Because ultimately, we're talking about attraction.
It's because it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Because it scares you and you're attracted to it. You're like, hell yeah, I'm going to put a billboard up.
And it's almost because it scares me. I'm attracted to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that much.
You're welcome.
It's also like, and to be honest too, it's a lot of money. So like, I don't just like, this business is in this is its fourth year. It's been a slow build up, and like just only within the last 6 months have I had a full-time employee.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally been doing, trying to run my business as the only employee the entire time. And in the last 6 months, it's really taken on a new phase of growth. But to amplify it at that level is, I don't know, it's intimidating. I spent years not hiring an employee for that same reason.
Mm-hmm. For what same reason?
There's some vulnerability in that too, because if everything's not dialed, just dialed for lack of a better term, within my organization, and I know it, and I know all its quirks and everything I got to do to make it work. And yeah, it's a hassle, but I can do it because it's my company and I'm motivated. That's fine.
And you can leave things undone because it's like, well, it's mine. I'm just gonna. You kind of have you could leave your flaws on it, but now when you start adding other people, you kind of have to get rid of a lot of those flaws.
Yeah, and in a way, I have to let them in to the company, and I got to have everything dialed because I can't. If it's not, and they're showing up and they're not showing up for clients, or they don't know where clients are, or there's miscommunication and numbers aren't exchanged properly, and I don't have vehicles ready to go, and I don't have vehicles fueled up, and I don't have cards in vehicles for fuel, and there's a million things that I can sort of sporadically manage in my head for myself. But it's got to be dialed if you're going to have an employee that you're going to send up to Big Sky and West Yellowstone and Gardner and into the park. And you got to have vehicles that you can rely on. And it's a lot. So I don't know. I made excuses for years that it didn't make sense, or I couldn't find the help, or kind of all the above. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think I've talked to you about this too. I always had to keep myself available to work, whether it came up last minute, because I didn't want to say no to anyone. I was trying to grow the business. But at that same time, it wouldn't allow me any freedom to say, go do carpentry with a crew, or to just go away for a few days and not have to worry about needing to get back or picking up a client or losing business. And I now am in a position where I can have guys working for these days. I can go work for someone else, which I'm doing quite a bit, and I can go away for 4 or 5 days and have a couple guys working for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even in that situation, you've kind of removed yourself from being the the single point of failure.
Yeah.
Right? Is it like, and I said it that way, so for effect, like it's not a single point of failure, but it's like it's the all these things were leading to you, and so if you couldn't go do anything else because then the business wouldn't run.
Yeah, and I even had an example just yesterday, kind of like thrown in my face, and this is, I don't know, this is like, these are the, I don't know if it's consequences or this is just how it is when you run a business. I had a client leave a bad review, and he said the vehicle, and this has been a long time client, and it's like nothing against the employee, but it's just miscommunication on my part. This is just something I didn't communicate properly. The vehicle wasn't clean when he was picked up, and then it wasn't cleaned again a few days later when he was picked up. And in the defense of myself and my employee, which like this client was being overly particular, and I did everything. I did everything I could to keep my composure and handle it with a level of maturity that I needed to. And I thought about saying, I was texting the client and I said, hey, we'll make it right. I'm happy to comp your trip. Sorry, your service wasn't what you expected. And there's a lot of other things I would have rather said to him. Mm-hmm. And I was about to say to him, I'll talk with the employee. And then I kind of thought about it for a minute. I said, this is my fault. I apologize. I'll take care of it. And then I did talk to the employee later, but it was the same thing as I had to take accountability for. It's my fault. It's not the employee's fault. Yeah, he might not have done what he's was expected to and required to do, and it's my fault that I'm not on top of that. Mm-hmm. I've talked to him since. I don't think it'll be an issue again, and if it is, that's something I'll have to take care of, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's me. Like, it's more, yeah. I'm like, I can be criticized beyond myself now. Yep. So I can have 3 employees working for me, and now it's not how good I do my job, it's how good they all do their job for me. Right. Because it all leads back to me. And then you think about that when you have a billboard on the side of the road. And, it's like, man, I got to have my shit dialed. I don't have to, but I'm going to take a lot of criticism and I'm going to sound like a flop and I'm going to have bad reviews all over Google. And so that's the vulnerability part. Yep. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you stand right now on meeting your full potential? That's a good question. I feel like there's so many. You can answer it any way you want. Yeah. It's your podcast. I'm even a partner on this podcast. I could edit this whole thing out if I don't like my answer. I'm 51%, everybody. This guy. Gotcha. Yeah, but I'm like, because I want to say pretty high on the scale, but like, there's always more I could do. I'm gonna say. So okay, let me make sure I'm gonna take accountability of asking a poor question. So I'm gonna clarify. It's about time. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you stand right now on meeting your full potential? An 8. Okay. Yeah, just given the variables of life. Yeah. Like I don't know. An 8 or above. You're like, you think you're meeting you're getting close to your full potential? For today. I'm talking about your life's full potential. Oh, then like a 1 or 2. Yeah. There's
Okay, so then how should I have worded that?
I don't know. That's
Because I was thinking like, what's your full potential in your entire life, and where do you stand today? So I was going to say something low, right? Like,
yeah, I would say
like you have a ton of potential, and you're just now starting to unlock it.
Yeah, I would say like 1 or 2 if that's but like as far as what I need to do today and get done, like yeah, I know like for the most part I try to the best of my ability to do as much as I can with the skills and knowledge I have and the resources I have. And that's like some humility that I just have to have for myself because I'm where I'm at. It's not yeah, there's people that are doing a lot better than me and there's people that aren't doing as well as me and like what metric are you using?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using finances? Are you using overall happiness, contentment, relationships?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's so broad that it's almost hard to answer. But yeah, like I'm a 1 or 2 from where I think and know I could be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like very high on like day to day. I'm not trying to do anything crazy.
I got you.
In a day. Where are you?
This is not. This is not. I'm not getting interviewed.
Come on, man.
Very low. What are you afraid of right now? Like what scares you? What bothers you?
No, it didn't pause. I'm just thinking. I mean, kind of back to the what are you like the biggest fear, which you kind of asked me, right?
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh. Did I do that already?
You asked me like what's my biggest. I think you asked me what I'm most afraid of.
Well, did I already ask you that?
And I said complacency.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry. We can edit that out.
No.
I can't believe I asked the same question twice.
Son of a. You know what? I'm the most afraid of bad questions.
Fuck you. Hang in there with us, everybody. What was the cause of the most significant change in your life?
Ooh. I got some tea. I got some information for you folks. Well, I'll almost say it backwards. I'll say what the most significant change in my life was, and then I'll say what the cause of it was.
Okay.
So, to the best of my knowledge, I'll tell you what I think the most significant change was, and then I'll tell you to the best of my knowledge why I think that happened. So, the biggest change was essentially leaving home, not farming anymore, kind of realizing that I could do something else with my life, which was not just live in a small town my entire life and farm and kind of, which is what my family had sort of been doing for generations. And that was essentially what my father had done and his father. And it was just kind of what you do when you grow up in a small town and you live on a working farm. So that was the biggest change, was leaving home for me, moving across the country, doing something totally different. The cause of it, like I remember one specific day. This is so funny because I remember this. I was renting a farm. I was in my I was like probably not quite in my mid-20s. Maybe I was like 23 or 24. And I was stressed out to the gills. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to keep doing this, but I didn't know what else I was going to do. And so anyway, here I am now. I've left my family's farm. I'm renting another farm because this is all I know. It's kind of like, what else would you do?
Your mind was closed and blocked.
I mean, just say you're like an animal and you're whatever. If your trade is, this is just what you do. You don't think beyond what you do. You just do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very obvious. If you're a cow, you eat food and make milk. Like you don't get up and say, hey, what am I going to do? But that's kind of how my mentality was. Anyway, I'm renting this farm.
Yeah, I mean your coworkers were cows.
Yeah, it was my
that was your environment.
It was my identity.
Yeah.
I'm renting this farm. I'm very stressed out. There's a lot of work to do. I'm not making any money. The business model for having a conventional dairy farm is just completely flawed, and as the same thing, it's all I know. So I'm doing this proven formula to not work, but I'm going to defy the odds because I can work twice as hard because I'm so young and ambitious. And like, I did, in my opinion, about as good as you could do. And like, I was getting like, I wasn't in debt, but I wasn't making any money, and it was not fun. And I just didn't want to do it. And anyway, this one specific day, the gal that I was dating at the time, a cow stepped on her foot.
Mm-hmm.
And she went to the hospital, and she went to the emergency.
Like break a bone in her foot.
Yeah, and it didn't break her bone; it was just bruised. But anyway, kind of relevant. She's like, I think I better go have this looked at. So she like drives herself. I got a bunch of cows of milk. I'm so stressed out, and I'm like, I just cannot find like any focus, any clarity what to do. And I'm like,
while you're working in that moment.
Yeah, and I'm either like on my phone or on my computer. I probably don't even have a smartphone yet. Like nobody believes me when I say how behind the times I was. But I look up either on my phone or my computer, and I typed in something on YouTube. Like
this would have been like 2014.
Yeah. Yes, it's probably I type in on YouTube like motivation or inspiration. Okay, and I start listening to this kind of compilation of different like speakers and stuff. And the one speaker is Les Brown. Have you ever heard of him?
I think I've heard of the name, but I've never heard him. I don't think I've ever heard him speak.
So he literally was just a motivational speaker, but like very compelling guy, like great energy. And I'm listening to it, and it's just kind of like the same thing you've heard in every like motivational speech that you probably never want to listen to again, about how you can change your life and do something with your life. And it just caught me at the right time. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I get into the description, and I find out who he is, and I find a bunch of his essentially audiobooks. And I swear, like from that day forward, I was essentially off to the races. Like I would listen to it every day, and this just kept going on.
What was the other guy's name that you got into? Like he had to burn his book.
Oh no, that book. I read that book when I was younger. That was Eckhart Tolle's book.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'd read Power of Now.
Yeah, I'd read that when I was younger.
But and then you burned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome.
I could burn it right now. I read that sometimes now, and I'm so annoyed by it.
What? Why?
Because it's like there's such obvious truths in it that are like, I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. Obviously, it's like so much easier said than done that it's almost annoying.
Okay, I got it.
So from that moment, like that essentially had led me to believe I could do something else with my life. So like that moment was, for whatever reason, a huge turning point. And but like I said, I read that book, the book you just referenced, when I was 18 or 19. So I had these little like.
How did you get into Eckhart Tolle at 18 or 19?
Just like kind of like researching things and about my mind and what's going on. And so there was like little tiny sprouts of like me wanting change, but just not quite having the mental maturity or capability to do anything about it.
You're a woodbilly.
Yeah, woodbilly. Shout out to Matt Wabshanak.
Also woodbilly.
Yeah, woodbilly. So there was like a part of me that always, somewhere deep inside, that knew I wanted to do something more, but I don't know. I just couldn't put it all together. But for whatever reason, it finally started to like, things started to stick after then. And then that took like, it really took like another year and a half from then, at least a year to when I left. And then if that moment, I just remember specifically because I remember that day, which is weird because it wasn't like some big emotional high, but like for some reason I really remember that day.
Mhm.
But then the day I actually left, which was one of the hardest things I ever did, in my truck, packed up, drove across the country.
Just super scared.
Yeah. I was, for lack of a better term, shitting my pants.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. I had no idea what was out there. What I literally had no idea.
When you got on the road and you were like, let's just say,
my heart was beating. I remember the feeling right now. I'm thinking of it. Like,
it's awesome.
It's an exciting feeling.
Yeah. And so what I'm getting at is like, you were really scared, but I'm curious if like you got 200 miles from the house or 500 miles from the house and you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. It was like I was gaining momentum as I was going.
Yeah. But like the first 50 miles, you're probably scared shitless.
Yeah. I just remember like, I remember this gas station I stopped at. It was between 3:30 and 4 in the morning. That's like kind of on the outside of town. I remember getting on this, like onto the interstate, and I was like keep looking. Like, is this real? It was insane.
Why were you were trying to make good time or something?
You know what? I think it was just
because you were sleeping in the truck.
Yeah. So I was going to make good time. It was crazy, man. Like the girl that I'd been dating for like almost 6 or 7 years was like we slept in the same bed the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like she was hysterically crying when I left that morning.
Right.
And she was very much in denial about the fact that I was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
As were most people. I was like, no, I'm leaving. Like, no, you're not.
Well, your truck was backed up.
Yeah.
And all your shit was in it.
Yeah, I was going to school, like, because I was going to work as a carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a trade school. Like, this wasn't like, this was clearly happening.
Yeah, right.
But it was like everyone wanted to call my bluff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the moment. One of those, like, something, and like, I don't know. Since then, it's been, I sometimes when I look back at it, I'm slightly in disbelief for where my life is now compared to where it was.
Right.
It's very weird. I literally had this conversation with somebody 3 days ago about that. I'm in, like, if I said, and I was speaking specifically to an experience 2 days ago, if you told me right now that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, like when I was in that 10 years ago, I would have only believed you if I had died and then like ended up in an alternative universe or reality. Like, there's no way I could have comprehended the circumstances that I'm in now to the ones that I was in then.
That's awesome.
Good question, man.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Let me look at my notes here. What's something that you're extraordinarily good at? You can be really good at it, or you can have like this natural ability that that's unique to you, something like that.
It's sort of tough to answer because, like, who likes to talk about themselves being good at anything?
You're on a podcast,
myself included.
Right?
Yeah, but
it could be whatever. I mean, you don't have. I guess it's rare that you would ever talk about it, so you can talk about it now because I asked you specifically. So you have permission to brag about your extraordinary ability.
Well, I don't know if I would still phrase it like that, but I'm pretty good at keeping my composure in high stress situations. And that could be like multiple variations of stress. Like whether it's like something dangerous or something that's like emotionally really like stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's when I'm the most tactical and think the most clear.
Putting these chairs together.
Yeah. That's low stress. I was ready to throw the chair across the room and through the wall. I just mean like, say like really like probably a high stress, like physically dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Like real ones, not simulated ones. Like I'll get more stressed out about a jiu-jitsu match.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could stress me out. But if you were in like a dangerous situation, like life threatening, I'd be like, all right, like, but let's like my mind just drops into this kind of calm, like, let's be tactical. Let's think about like, what do we need to do? So like probably tactical thinking.
Do you have an example of when you've been in one of those?
Let me think about that for a while and I'll come back to it.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah, probably like tactical thinking, if that. And I don't like consider myself overly intelligent. So
got it. What advice would you give yourself from 3 years ago?
Oh yeah, like don't be so stressed out about turning 30.
Hmm.
I was very stressed out about what I had accomplished by 30 because it just seemed like such a milestone of an age.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to like accomplish a bunch by the time you got there.
Yeah, I just thought like if I would be comparing myself to society and where other people were in my age range or demographic, and just thought that I needed to have said things figured out or said things done financially, any of the above. And
like, what were some of the things on your mind that you were maybe
like
you wish you had that you didn't have, or you wish you accomplished that you hadn't accomplished?
Like, I should probably be married with 2 kids. I should probably like, have X piece of property and X vehicle and X net worth and X, like really societal expectations, to like not worry about societal expectations. And don't create them for yourself. Because now in my infinite wisdom that I've acclaimed in the 3 years since, I just realized that you're kind of right where you need to be and like where you should be. And like, that's not a cop out, because like I always think I can always do better and do more, but it's, you sort of learn things as you need to learn them, and you progress as you can, and you can't force things if it's not there. If you try to force those things to make to meet some sort of societal expectation, it's gonna end up in misery. And that could be
do you think you accept yourself more today than you did when you were 30?
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot more. Because I just like, I don't know, I'm who I am. It's like, what are you going to do about it? It's, I didn't pick this. This is just where I ended up.
Yeah, and you're working on the things that you want to change.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge and ability.
What are those things that you want to change about yourself?
Probably.
And you can just pick one or two.
Okay, here's a good one.
Things that you're just trying to.
Here's a good one, and I think I'm like
slowly adapt.
I would say this is a big improvement even from the last time you interviewed me. My speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So, self-awareness and patience when I'm talking.
Still a woodbilly.
Yeah, okay. Not just, responding to respond and like thinking about a response and being more articulate. And so, yeah, speaking, communicating, and empathy for other people and their situations and where they may have come from. In a weird way, I like picked much more of that up and like learned a lot of that just from the driving business and talking to people. And then this is, in some sense, an evolution of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to when we first met, like you were really quiet in social settings.
Yeah.
You're not anymore. You're quiet, but you're way more comfortable in talking to everybody.
Yeah, and like that was something I'll say struggled with it, but that's who I was a lot growing up. I was not socially exposed to much at all.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying in the last, what is it, 5 years?
Yeah.
So
At least since I've known you, yeah.
yeah. So in the last 5 years, like in a, you're like way more comfortable just talking to people that you don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of fun now because I just realized everybody's got something interesting to say, and it's fun hearing people's story and perspective every time. It's kind of like it's almost selfish because I want to learn about them. They get to talk about themselves, but really I'm getting so much from it too because I'm learning about them, which in a way ends up I'm learning about myself because they're human, I'm a human, and I don't know. It's like there's a lot of reciprocity because they get to talk about themselves and tell you their perspective, and that's great. But it also does so much for me because now I get to know more about them and know more about our culture and society. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something I'm improving. I hope. Seems like it.
I think you made huge strides. How much do you think of it was that you were being too hard on yourself? Meaning like what am I doing in the room, in this room with these people? Right. Or like, like maybe you had some self-doubt about like who you were, who you thought people thought, like how people were perceiving you. Was that on your mind when 4 or 5 years ago when you're like kind of shy in social settings?
To an extent, yeah. Like I think it always is to some extent, but there's also just a lack of comfort from a lack of exposure.
Mm.
And I think that's something you kind of learn and develop when you're young. The more you're exposed to it, the more comfortable you get. The less you are, the less comfortable you get. But like jujitsu has been a huge part of that in a lot of ways
Mm-hmm.
because it's so uncomfortable and it's stressful and it's, getting the shit kicked out of you in front of a bunch of other people like that kind of like your barometer for what's uncomfortable and what even matters. Totally, it's transformed. It's hard to see it in yourself, but if I looked back, like it's too bad I couldn't hear an interview of myself 4 years ago. But the cool thing is now, in 4 years, I don't know why I said 4 because you said 3, but I'll be able to listen to this, and I'm sure I'll have all kinds of criticisms, but I'll also be able to go, wow, look how improved it is. Look how improved my speech is. I think if you like, even right now, I know, but I'm also being aware of it. If you like took the amount of times I said fuck in my last podcast,
Mm.
it was probably 100 plus more than I've said it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost never noticed that. It was some sense it was subconscious, and it was just the way it was the speech patterns that had been impressed upon me growing up. It was around me.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I see it, I'm like, I can make a conscious effort to change it. What was the original question? We're talking about 3 years ago.
Yeah, the question was, what advice would you give yourself from 3 years ago?
Yeah, just don't, chill out. Don't give myself such a hard time.
Yeah, you were worried about
it out.
becoming 30.
Yeah.
Right now you seem like you're in a really good groove.
Yeah.
In like all aspects of life, pretty much.
Yeah.
If I were to generalize.
Yeah.
If you were to kind of coach yourself through, your life, right, which you are, but like if you were to just be a good coach, right, or mentor, or however you want to phrase that, how would you stay in this groove that you're at and you're in right now, even when circumstances change? So like 6 months from now, a year from now, these circumstances are going to change.
Yeah.
So one thing's going to get quote unquote worse, or it's going to not be as secure or whatever. So how do you stay in a good groove and deal with that stuff?
I think
What advice would you give yourself, or how would you coach yourself?
I got to coach myself in the future now.
Yeah, bro.
I think I would say just to think more long term.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take and maybe we could start with feeling. And I think about anxiety a lot. What is it doing? Why is it there?
You're anxious about thinking about anxiety.
Yeah, sure. Well, what is why do I have anxiety? It's trying to tell me something. And it could be saying, "Hey, do you want to feel like this all the time?" Maybe not. So maybe pay attention to what you're doing and what's going to make me feel more anxious. And it's not, not having things dialed and not being prepared and not thinking long term. So I could find a way to quickly avoid that feeling. And there's a lot of ways, I know healthy ways and unhealthy ways to avoid feeling anxiety. Or I could say, this, maybe I'm feeling like this because I woke up just in a bad state of mind. And maybe part of this is just anxiety comes and goes because I'm a human. Or part of it's telling me, hey, what you're doing every night is you're staying up too late and you're not working out and you're headed down and you're getting comfortable because maybe things are going well. And maybe you got people working for you now, so you're getting kind of lazy. And so I would say to think long term in the sense that this it's going to pass, everything's going to come and go, all these phases. So enjoy the good ones and work through the hard ones and appreciate the challenges that they're presenting. And yeah, I mean I don't know, I feel that if I made instant decisions based on my feelings, it wouldn't be good.
Mm-hmm.
But I am more self-aware now when I'm feeling anxious or stressed out and saying, hey, maybe I've been working too much and maybe I haven't been prioritizing my own personal health and fitness and diet, and maybe I should dial that in and get a good night's sleep. And
So what you're saying is, let me make sure I understand. What you're saying is the anxiety is telling you something.
yeah,
And you need to pay attention to what the underlying cause of that is, because it's something that you're not taking care of.
yeah, and it could but I try to also remember that it's not that black and white. Sometimes it might be anxiety because it was a pattern of the way I felt a lot when I was a kid, and I might just slip back into those same patterns. And I might just be stuck in a bad anxious pattern. I'm used to
so it's both, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just simple anxiety and you can't solve it and you should just fucking forget about it because you're beating yourself up about something that's out of your control. And then sometimes it's in your control and you should pay attention to it and you should fix it.
Yeah, there's some
like that stupid lock on your tailgate.
Yeah.
Problem solved. You should fix it.
Yeah.
And you did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But there's other things where you're you may not be able to help it at all. So you might as well just freaking go to sleep.
Yeah. And there's,
leave it alone.
It's nuance. So there's I can't think of it right now, but there's some statement about kind of stating your feelings.
Saying them out loud.
Yeah. And there's some catchy slogan to it, which I can't remember, but there's something about kind of acknowledging it and stating it. And it kind of,
what's that called? There's a therapy around saying something out loud.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then you hear yourself say it and it's completely ridiculous. And you're like,
okay, it goes
I don't know why I had this thought.
It's feel it to heal it and say it to.
Yeah, okay.
I can't finish.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I've heard of this before.
Anyway, so I would just say to keep aware of those feelings and realize that they might be telling me something, and they might just be there because I'm a human and life's nuanced and there's a lot that goes on.
Right.
But hopefully in 4 years, I got much more intelligent advice than I do now. So we'll see. might tell myself to stop drinking so much decaf coffee too. Or just keep drinking Elements because they're so good. I gotta stay hydrated, and you gotta stay salty, Montana.
What gets you really excited and fired up? Like things you really enjoy, or like, yeah, what gets you really excited?
New York Mets.
Okay, hell yeah.
Like, that's my...
They're playing the Dodgers right now, aren't they?
Yeah, that's my...
How's that going?
Well, they're down 2-1.
Okay.
They had one big victory and two big losses.
Coming back, though.
Yeah. For whatever reason, that is the one place I can, like, I have full permission to just express my emotions. It gets pretty wild.
When's their next game?
Tonight. It's actually right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, get out of here.
Where
are they playing? New York or LA?
New York.
Okay, so the game's going to be like over pretty soon.
No, I mean, it's probably like
2 more hours.
Yeah, it's probably they're like an hour in. They're probably like third, fourth inning. But it's so funny because when I was a kid, and you only put this together when you're older. My mother, she would get really fired up, like, and she would scream, and it would kind of startle us as kids because you're just hanging out in the middle of nowhere where all these kids with
probably kind of late.
Yeah,
right, because like the games on the East Coast are really late.
I mean, 7:00. So this could be like 8, 9:00. Not crazy late. Okay. They're late here, or everything like is later there than it is here, but it's But for whatever reason, I kind of like pick that up, and she's got 3 older brothers, and they're all into sports, so I'm sure it rubbed off on her from them. But I will I don't know, for whatever reason, nothing else gets me that fired up, but I get so excited when they do good, and I don't get like I'll get bummed out if they don't do well, but I don't get pissed. It's just like whatever. But when they do good, and they've been having some bangers of wins, like I get excited. I'm screaming in my truck, in my house. Like, it's kind of startling.
It's like you're on the team.
Yeah. And I don't know why I don't get that emotionally involved with other things, but it's fun. It gets me fired up. I don't know, like working out gets me pretty fired up. Jiu-jitsu can get me pretty fired up. Mm-hmm. Just like, but like I said, I don't get like crazy excited about it, but I feel really good after. Like, jiu-jitsu makes me feel really good. Working out makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Building things and looking at them when they're done, that makes me feel good. But like, I don't know, baseball gets me fired up. I don't know why. Like,
the Mets get you fired.
Yeah, the Mets and baseball. But yeah, like even in my games though, sometimes when I'm playing, like sometimes I just like. I remember this one game we literally came back in the last inning. We were down 7 runs and 1. And I was on deck, and like we'd already batted around our order because we had put 7. And the guy hit a base hit with somebody on third base when it was tied, and it was the bottom of the inning. And like, it's so funny is like I had an out of body experience. Like, I probably jumped like 2.5 feet in the air. I could have dunked that like on that jump.
Right.
And I just like I remember it vividly, but I was so
when he was sliding into home or whatever.
Just when I saw I just saw the hit. Okay. I saw it going to the outfield, and was like I knew it, but I was like, because I don't know, when you're down that much.
You're standing outside the dugout, just
I was in the on deck circle, like literally. Yeah, it was epic.
Nice.
Yeah, baseball gets me fired up. Mets get me fired up.
Awesome.
Yeah. I start showing people highlight reels.
Yeah. But you got back into the Mets this year.
I've will passively follow them. It's just like, it's honestly hard. You get kind of bogged down or just very involved with everything you're doing in your own life that you don't think like, I wonder what the Mets are doing. Mm-hmm. It's honestly like a focus thing.
Right.
Like this year and my sister did last year too. Like, I'm just go on her MLB account because she has it. And like, and I'll watch them on my computer, or just listen to him on my phone. And it's like, I was screaming the other night in my truck with nobody in it. It's like a good thing the windows were up, because you would have thought like you don't even know what I was doing, but it's been fun. So yeah,
cool.
See, I can feel that I'm getting more excited.
We should go to a Mets game.
Yeah,
like next year we should just let's just do it. Let's go to a Mets game.
I'll tell you what
whether it's in New York or wherever.
I'll tell you what my girlfriend said to me the other day. She said, "Why do I feel like I'm emotionally involved with the Mets now?" And I was like, "Because you are, because you're around me, and it's like so." It's like that contagious excitement is like, yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I've gone to like, yeah, that's the one thing that I miss or wish I had more of was professional sports. But
yeah,
what do you do? You know,
I think we just have to plan trips and go to them. Like I've done it a couple times. Like when I go to a big city, I'll go to a game.
I'll tell you. Here's something some advice I would have given to my maybe my 8-year-old self. Not that you asked for it, but I said this also to my girlfriend the other day. I said, because I play baseball now, I'm playing on a men's baseball team, and I'm a carpenter. And I said, when I was a kid, I said I wanted to be a baseball player and a carpenter when I grew up. I was like, I should have been a little more specific because I should have said I wanted to be a major league baseball player and a whatever carpenter.
Yeah.
I was just kind of poking fun at the scale of my baseball player, but in all honesty, I'm doing exactly what I said I wanted to do as a kid. So, because I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I'd be more specific when I was a kid with my dreams if I could
go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some like anywhere, I'd love to see the Mets play anywhere in the country. So wherever, it doesn't have to be in Citi Field. Citi Field's great too, but there's a lot of cool parks like Wrigley. That'd be a cool park to go to. Some cool classic parks.
It'd be cool to go to Baltimore, go to the Orioles.
I have been there.
Or was it Camden?
Camden Yards? Yeah. I don't know if is that Baltimore?
I thought it was.
Yeah, I've been there. I know I've been there as a kid. We saw Cal Ripken playing in his last season.
The Kansas City Royals, this would be a cool stadium too.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Old school stadium. Anyway, random. I'm thinking about random stadiums. Safeco was really cool. I thought that was a cool field. It's called something else now, right?
Safeco is
the Seattle.
I don't know what it's called now. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, it is cool. Just cool backdrop with the city and
yeah. Been to a couple of games there.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you know yourself? Do you know what you want, what you like, what you believe, what you think? How well do you know yourself on a scale of 1 to 10?
At least a 6. Maybe a 7, but I'd be bouncing between those two.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because it's weird to not think that we know ourselves.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to watch yourself. And one of the greatest ways I've seen for myself to do that is to listen to myself on a podcast. You get this kind of interesting third person perspective on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I know part of me is I know part of me is in denial, so maybe a 2. I don't know. But yeah, somewhere around there. A lot more in the last 7 years than the rest of my life. I feel like anywhere before then I was probably a 2 or 3. But I've noticed mass progression in the last 6-7 years.
What do you think that is? Why don't people know themselves? And I'm in the same category where sometimes it's hard to articulate exactly what I want and what I think.
I don't know, man. I think part of it's you might not think about it. Kind of like I said, I was most of my life just farming. I didn't really think about it. I just kind of did what I knew. But then somewhere around my mid-20s, which is a common theme I've noticed with a lot of my friends, is you kind of hit that maturity where your frontal cortex is fully developed roughly around then, and you kind of start to your brain is essentially fully formed, and then you kind of have this kind of new awareness. I don't know. They say the Carl Jung quote is the first half of life is almost a mistake. You're just kind of
Are you reading a bunch of Carl Jung right now?
I'm no, like, I'll read and listen to a lot of people that study him.
Okay.
A little, so like the first half of life is like,
I think this is like 2 or 3 podcasts in a row. You were fucking, okay, let me pull something out of Carl Jung.
hey, well, like, yeah, I don't know. He's got a lot of insights.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
So I don't know. Just like takes exposure and time. And then you kind of realize. But I don't know. It depends
First
on
half of life is a mistake. Let's just say I'm a third of the way through. No, I'm more than a third of the way through.
Hey, man, you never know. Like with this trend, the rate we're going, might not even be a third.
I think I'm a little bit more than a third probably, but
Hey, man, I don't like your attitude right now.
that's interesting. Shit, I got to get going.
I was having that thought of, like within the last few weeks, I'm like, man, like I'm 33. Like I'm not getting any younger. Like, what am I doing waiting for like next 10 years to go by so then I can like
Do something?
Yeah. It's like, what if, like, it's not going to be as fun when I'm 45.
Yeah.
So, the hell was the question?
It was, I asked you how well you thought you know yourself. You said about a 6 or 7.
Pretty well, but that always changes. But like, yeah, doing this podcast has introduced me to myself in a lot of new ways.
Yeah, it makes me think about this book that you burned. The Power of Now. Because if you think about it, well, that book.
You should try reading The Power of Not Bringing Things Up.
That book, has a bunch of good messages in it, but the main one is there's nothing but right now.
Yeah.
The past is over. The future hasn't happened yet, and you can't anticipate all of it. So the only thing that's actually worth spending any energy on is right now. And so if that's the case, then I think for me, I would say I know myself right now with a lot more confidence. Because I guess I don't like to, well, I guess I don't like to be wrong, and I don't like to put myself in a box. And so sometimes I hesitate because I'm thinking ahead, right? I'm saying, well, this is what I think, this is what I believe, but I'm unsure of that because I'm thinking ahead when I answer that question. If I were to not think ahead, and I would just say, what do I think right now? My confidence would go up, and I think my level of which I know myself would go up.
Yeah, it's weird when you start thinking a lot. You kind of like go out of the present moment, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something that you made me think of, and I don't know if you've ever had this experience or everyone has. Anyone, I'm sure people have. But when you speak about knowing yourself, I've just realized this in the last couple of years, and it's kind of like it's almost an uncomfortable truth to realize in some sense. And this could, I say it, excuse me, I think of it for my business, and you could like, I don't think you have to have a business to do this. It makes it easier for me, but you could say it to your career, what you do. But I've realized that my business is an expression of myself, and the problem with that is I could look at everything it's not doing and all its shortcomings, and I could see how those are expressions of my personality and how I feel myself, and it kind of has to be because I am the one behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm calling the shots. I'm making the decisions. So anything that's lacking, like if there's a fear of growth, like then there's a fear of growth within me.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's just anything you can name, and I could say, I've got this really cool name and this really cool logo, but it's lacking a bunch. So I can essentially say, so I've got a really good image, but inside I'm lacking. And that's that's a very uncomfortable truth to have. Like, what am I internally lacking? Like, does everything look good to everyone else on the outside? Do I know how to portray an image properly? But inside, what are my issues? And honestly, hiring employees has made me have to look at some of these. Well, like, sometimes I am afraid to just hand over responsibility, and I'm not trusting of other people. And I'm too much of a control freak to do everything myself. And I've got to just let things go. And that's, I can see why I wouldn't hire employees for so long. And then I can see because I was an expression of myself. And I think you could do the same thing with your job. You could say, what do I do at work? What is this? Is this a reflection of? So I don't know, for me, it's been a great way to get to know myself, but also an uncomfortable way. It's exciting now because kind of like have these aha moments and breakthroughs, and things are accelerating now. And miraculously, as my business starts to gain a bunch of momentum and take off, I start to feel better about myself. And it's like, oh yeah, well, duh. Like, I know which one came first. But I don't know. It's weird, man.
Which one came first?
Like myself, like for whatever reason, through various reasons, like, but it's funny because you can correlate even
like
us.
You weren't ready to make a change, so your business didn't change.
Yeah.
Yep.
But and I correlate quite a bit of it. I'm honestly like thinking some of this in real time too. So bear with me. I haven't pre-thought any of this. But this podcast. It's been a year and a half though, like since we bought the stuff and started.
Has it been that long?
So it was almost 2 when we really started talking about like we got to start recording ourselves.
I'm going to tell you when we bought this stuff.
So the only thing I could tell you is we have some really stupid recordings on my phone because we just started talking when we were driving. Do you remember when we were driving to Shane Smith and the Saints in Missoula?
I do.
So I know that was 2 summers ago. But yeah, so there's been an evolution within myself since then. And now it has, it's happened in the business as well.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to find out when we bought all this stuff. So we bought that in August 2023.
Okay, so it's
a year and a couple months.
Yeah, September, October.
Yeah. So that's when we bought this. We started this stuff. So we started it. And we kind of did what, like one a month, one every 6 weeks.
Yeah, we did a bunch. We were totally just like off the cuff. It was like, I hope they all burn.
We need to post the one where we were drinking.
No, I hope they all burn. I hope no one ever finds them.
Oh my God. We should go back and listen.
That was one of the best ones. That was one of the most important ones we ever did. Because that was when we came up with the idea to interview our family. And friends and family.
See, drinking, kids, it can be good for you.
I'll tell you one revelation specifically to my business. So I've had this business for over 4 years, and it's transportation, and I always wanted it to only be in pickup trucks. Because it had to be pickup trucks, because as you said, I'm a woodbilly. And I grew up on a farm. It's trucks. It's the culture. It's our company. And I was ready to die on this hill. And all this was doing was holding me back. A limited amount of passengers. So I had to say no so many times. And because I didn't have any
You had to deny clients.
Yeah. And because I didn't have any employees, I couldn't even I couldn't have a second guy. And I was so stuck on being on this identity that I was holding myself back. I wouldn't let myself grow. And ironically, as I have this revelation that, it's, I know who I am. I know where I came from. I grew up on a farm. I love that part of myself and my culture. But there's also so much more I can do and be. And it was about the time I said, you know what? like with to the day, almost in the weirdest way, like a bunch of synchronistic events, I bought the SUV. And then I'm like, oh, I can actually still be so much more and offer so much more. And like this was all happening, having this internal revelation as my company is getting the first SUV on its fleet. Funny enough, we're having this conversation. I just bought the second one today, like literally today. And now the company is rapidly growing so much more, and I can do so much more and offer so much more to my clients. I can offer so much more to my friends because we have a podcast that we do. We can now sit down and talk with people we don't know, people we know well, family members, friends, people we've never sat down and talked to before. I have a handful of good friends that I've met and people I've met and made just only directly because of this podcast. And so it's, I don't know, it's weird and it's humbling and painful to look at, but it's also, I don't know, for me, my business has taught me more about myself than I almost want to know. And then this podcast. Then I got to listen to this. And then I got to criticize the way I think and speak.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I've had about enough of that.
Right. Let's wrap it up.
Let's do it.
Tim Baldwin.
Stay salty, Montana.
Peace out.
Trying to get that Element sponsorship.